Hey, we are back. This is John.
Hey, it's Paul.
And it's Eric.
That is What If Geeks, and we are here with a review of the first half of the Masters of the Universe Revelation series that just dropped on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, because, we're always late. But it took us a little while to do it, and, we had other shit to do. We were reviewing shit from like 6 months ago. So, but yeah, so well before we get to that, hey, how's everybody doing?
Better than you.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't want to leave Paul all by himself from way back a few months ago. Apparently I went and got COVID.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. Got COVID, don't know where the fuck I got it, but granted, I only have like
your 2020/2021 bingo card is complete.
That's it. I'm pretty
watched Tiger King, blah blah blah, got COVID. Yeah.
That's it.
Bingo.
So I get to hang out in my my house, mostly my room. Right now I've snuck into my office to do this, but I'll hang out in my room for the most part for the rest of the week. So everyone's all caught up. I got diagnosed with COVID Saturday, just of rumored exposure that I thought I had, and then the rest of the family got tested, and everyone else is good except Noah. So my 9-year-old has COVID as well. Story you guys will thoroughly enjoy, because we also have a German student that just arrived this weekend.
Oh,
he's also negative. Yeah. We have a German foreign exchange student that showed up. Well, not showed up. We knew he was coming. He's just like, Shazam!
Good dog. Hello.
Good dog. Hello. Which is actually exactly what he's like. It's amazing. So I've only really trying to limit exposure to everybody. I've only spoken to him for like 5 minutes in the 3 days he's been here. But and everyone's wearing masks and everything. But he's a really nice kid. So Heather's negative, and Jesse's negative. So she talks to him for a while, and she's like, "Yeah, no, he's great. You're gonna love him when you get to hang out with him, whatever." So Noah, being Noah, after I got exposed to it, we knew the German kid was vaccinated, so we weren't too worried about him. The other ones went. Heather's already vaccinated. Jesse's vaccinated, but Noah's not. But school's starting, so everyone's got to go get tested, whatever. The German kid's got his own test or whatever that he was doing, and the other 3 go today to get tested. And Heather, Jesse, negative. Noah comes back positive, and I'm like, really? Wow. This is like a school year that he was looking forward to. He's going back to school. He's getting ready to play football, tackle football again in the fall. So he's got to miss 10 days. But outside of a little bit of a kind of, wow, initially, which I missed because I wasn't there, came home, and he's been in fine spirits because he gets to hang out with me. So I guess that's good. Which is one of our friends laughed. Was like, I guess we know who loves John because he's just like, whatever, I just hang out with Daddy. It's fine. Heather goes to take Christopher, our foreign exchange student, to get his physical and everything for school. And I'm upstairs in the bedroom quarantining like I'm supposed to. They've literally been home from their diagnosis like 10 minutes. And Noah comes walking into my fucking bedroom like Kramer in Seinfeld, just bang, and Xbox and controllers in his arms. He was waltzing in like, yeah. So I think if we just hook this up here and this over there, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He said, "Well, we can play Minecraft and hang out." I'm like, I guess we can." He's a little son of a bitch. He just took over my whole fucking room. I'm like, "Well, are you gonna be up here because I have to podcast tonight? I'll sneak down to my office." He's like, "Yeah, you can go to your office." Like, "Oh, good, thanks. I was set up until you got COVID, and then fucking here you come." Oh god, he took over my whole fucking bedroom. So there's that. We won't get into how Eric like outed me to like half the neighborhood. But
People are going to put their masks on when they walk by your house now.
Oh my gosh.
That was funny. I get it. At first, I was a little fucking irritated because it was like a third party like text, like, "Hey, I heard John's, got COVID. Do you need help? Whatever." And it wasn't so much like they were being nice about it, but I was like, "How the fuck?" And then Heather commented something to our group text, and Eric was like, Becca said, "That's Eric because he doesn't know HEPA laws." And it took me 3 seconds to realize. I'm like, "Oh, that's because I told you to."
It wasn't even like a topic of conversation or anything. It was like I was sitting there at the table next to Marissa. You texted me that, and then I was like, "Oh fuck, John has COVID," to Marissa, and then somebody else who was also there, I don't remember who the hell it was like, "John Petit, how do you know that?" I'm like, "I just got a text." I'm like, "Oh my god, what about Heather and Noah?" I'm like, "I don't know," and that was it. That was the end of it. But apparently, that person must have texted you.
Yeah. No, it's just like there's a little bit of that, like on the side note, you get like that. You're the pariah of the neighborhood all of a sudden, and I was like, "Son of a bitch! I tried to do the right thing and go get tested." Like all I had was like a freaking sinus congestion, you bastards. But yeah, so it's all good. It's all good. Whatever. I mean, I've got sinus congestion, or the second coming of the plague or some shit. Whatever. Matters not to me. So on to Masters of the Universe.
On that note,
I'm gonna end the world, or at least in Florida. But Florida survived worse, so we'll be all right. We are on to Masters of the Universe, Revelation. So I because I've got nothing better to do with my time, I went and I wrote like a 20-page dissertation on 5 episodes of a fucking show because I'm a moron. But real quick, just briefly, we can go into. So for those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you're listening to this podcast, Masters of the Universe, He-Man, yada yada. It was initially something. It was a cartoon that was released back in where the fuck did my thing go?
83.
I think it was, oh, there it goes. You moved it. I was looking right at it. It was all right. So the original series was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It was dropped in 83 to 85, right? And basically back in the 80s, it was just everything. Every cartoon was just a commercial for a toy. We made that joke time and again here, right? G.I. Joe, Transformers, all that shit. But He-Man kind of seemed to be something special, where it was like a meld of magic and science and sorcery and all kinds of weird shit that was just shoved together, and these muscle-bound dudes. So kids just loved it.
What's interesting is, and I think, I don't know if we talked about this on the Netflix show, The Toys That Made Us.
Yeah.
But like usually the movie or the show came first and the toys came second, right? So Star Wars comes out, Kenner launches this line of small action figures that go nuts.
Right. This was the other way around.
They wanted to they had a figure in mind. They created it, and they wanted a show around it to sell it. And I think that since then, that may be the first time that that's happened, but now that's the way it happens now.
That's
right? And if the toy doesn't sell well, so the second incarnation of Thundercats is the example. If now the toy doesn't sell well, they're not going to greenlight a second season of the show. So right. they rebooted Thundercats to the Cartoon Network in the, 2009, 10, 11, something like that. Maybe even later. Came out with a line of toys around it, didn't sell well, and so they did not get a second season. I thought that was a really well done show, but it doesn't matter because it was only there to sell the toys, and they didn't sell. So
right.
No second season.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that Thundercat show. We'll get into that some other time. I'm
but-
saving that one.
Yeah, but I say all that to say this was the original Masters of the Universe was simply to sell this that they came up with, this line of
Yeah.
action.
And I know you and I grew up watching it. Eric, did you?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly where you fall in this. Right. So all right. So we all grew up watching this one, right?
Mhm.
So then it falls off of our radar, and then it comes back as a horrible reboot in 1990. That was like He-Man and Skeletor went to space, and that's all we're gonna talk about because I hate that fucking thing, and we're not gonna talk about it ever again.
Yep.
There was another one, and I forgot to put it on here. I was looking at it, or it got deleted somehow by Eric.
Oh, it wasn't me. You're talking about the live action movie?
Yeah, there's a lot of action.
No, there was a live action movie with Dolph Lundgren and Langella, Peter Paul. What the
Frank.
Frank Langella.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Jesus, Peter Paul.
Mary.
Mary. Yeah, Mary.
Yeah. Mary Langella plays Skeletor. And ironically, Courtney Cox. Yeah, they showed up and they got rid of Orko and threw in Gwildor because fuck reality. And that thing was atrocious, but when you go back and look at it, I don't know. There's part of it that kind of like lives like, fondly in my memory. I guess. I don't know. Kind of. It's still not really that great. But there was another animated that they redid it just like they did.
That was in like the early 2000s.
Early
with
2000s.
It was like He-Man versus the Snake Man.
Yes, yeah. Well, before it was He-Man vs. Snake Man, they changed the name to that. It was just like He-Man and Master Universe again. But they did the whole. They showed the backstory of Skeletor, who was Keldor, and it was Randor's brother, and all that bullshit. Which was very like Thor and Loki, adopted brother and whatever, adopted blue brother and then whatever. So they that was a really decent show too. I liked it a lot. And then it died again, and then Netflix got the rights and said, "Wow, let's go do something with this." And they found Kevin Smith, who is like a fanboy of everything we're a fan of, right? Like Star Wars. I mean, this guy is like fucking nuts when it comes to the shit we like. And they said, "Okay, let's talk to you. Do you want to make something?" And he was like, "Well, I really didn't even get a chance to play with these things." This is what he said in his interview. He's like, "I didn't get a chance to play with these things, but I knew a lot about them, and there's the toys that I loved. So if I could play with them in an animated thing, it'd be great." And you got this new, he said, "I'm going to make a sequel to the 80s cartoon." So you have this sequel to a fan beloved series dropping on Netflix with current technology and current animation, and how could it go wrong? And most of the fans fucking hate it. And that's basically what I wrote there. I was trying to, like, without scrolling down, my mouse wasn't working. Yeah. So the fucking fans hated it. And we're gonna get into all that. Because I mean, like, nostalgia is amazing to me. I've been looking forward to this fucking thing so long, so hard. As soon as they announced it, I was like, yes, I'm all in. And the fans killed it before it even fucking launched. And we did do a quick recap of episode 1, but we're going to go into all the episodes and just the whole first half, just to see, is it the woke bullshit that some of the fans are saying it is, or is it just cool? All right, let's see. Yeah, you want to take it away? So I can breathe and not choke on my COVID?
So
what are we doing? Just opinions?
Yeah, quick rundown of I'll give you my quick first thoughts. I think it's good. It's not as actiony. So there are bouts of fights that are kind of cool, but I think it's a better story woven through it than anything in the years that it was on when we were kids, right? So you think back to like every He-Man episode was everybody's in trouble, Prince Adam's in trouble, the castle's in trouble. Adam pull out the sword, become He-Man, boom, problem solved.
Mm-hmm. Mostly, yeah.
This is like, there was never character development. You never knew what anybody thought about anything, any of that stuff. This has got like genuine people thinking about, hey, you lied to me about this thing, and that really sucks, and it's ruined our relationship, and it's ruined our stuff, and I've got problems with it, and there's enough fighting to get you through, but it's you've never, none of these characters have ever had this like a personality before, or to even like,
yeah,
there's a conversation where like Evelyn and Teela are having this conversation about like, we're playing second fiddle to these guys instead of doing our own thing, and you can't, she's like, you can't change them and you can't do whatever, and it's just cool to have these two female characters just have this conversation about like, why are we playing second fiddle to these dudes?
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why if all you wanted was just the kind of, you just wanted to see He-Man fight some stuff and blow up some robots, then you're not, you could come away with this not super happy, because not every episode is chock full of fighting.
Yep.
But if you like science fiction and you want a good story, you should like this. And then the end, you're like, holy cow. And like, now I'm excited about part 2.
Yeah. All right. Eric, can you run us through your first thoughts real quick?
Yeah, so I mostly agree. I wasn't quite as engaged with the whole thing. Like, it was interesting, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting, to be honest. I thought it was going to be sort of more like the original. The original cartoon was more of sort of a well, it was like all cartoons in the 80s, I guess, but like one show could basically stand alone on its own. It wasn't much of a storytelling. It was a good guy fights bad guy, good guy wins, save the day, it's all over kind of thing. So it certainly wasn't quite that. It was definitely more storytelling going on here, which isn't a bad thing, but they also he didn't even try. Kevin Smith crammed like literally every reference to every character you've ever saw anywhere, every line, like it's all coming in this show, and it's all coming at you 100 miles an hour. What I will say about
we'll get into that as we go into the episodes.
Yeah, what I will say about this though is that so a lot of fans complained, and I'm not going to go there, but a lot of fans complained about woke He-Man. I don't think it was that at all. But I mean, if you're being honest about what this is, at least the first 4 of the first 5 episodes are not about He-Man,
right?
Mm-hmm. At all.
Right.
It's not about He-Man. In fact, it's not even about his main villain. It's something completely different. It's like a side quest for the secondary characters, which is okay. Yeah. I mean, he's making something out of nothing, basically.
Well, and you're right. And if you remember when we briefly went over the first episode, and I kept trying to bite my tongue because you guys had not watched the rest of it yet, I was saying I understand where the woke complaints and where all those other complaints are coming from. However, if you just go from a storytelling standpoint and go back to the 80s of, who knew his secret and what other secrets there were that are lingering, right? They knew, like he told a really good story from that standpoint. And then he kind of grew, but he made it for today. He didn't make it for back then, which is to kind of touch on Eric's point of, back in the day in the 80s of, cut and dry episodes, you find it a villain, you're done. and still there's kind of a story through, like a through line, but not really. Nowadays, you have to have that storyline. You have to have it. It's just how we've matured as an audience, and they're doing it here. So, like, yeah, well, I get what the initial. I'm not even gonna say. I'm not gonna justify what I get. What the initial argument was. I see where they were trying to formulate that from, but I don't agree with it at fucking all. At all. I don't.
If you were to make the 80s show now, you'd get laughed at because it's boring. Like, it's sort of boring, right? Yeah. Eric got it, you in 26 minutes or 24 minutes plus commercials or whatever, you have something happens, the bad guys are under attack, good guys are under attack from the bad guys, looks like they're going to win, He-Man pulls out the sword, boom, we're done, we're wrapped up. And then it happens all over again, different situation, bad guys losing the end.
Deus Ex Machina, done.
Right. Yeah. Like, that's not entertaining, and it wouldn't make it today, right? Where we expect better story, tell a better story. And so Kevin Smith is a great storyteller. And so he took the characters and told a better story than you would have done if simply every episode were, oh gosh, attorney is getting attacked again, He-Man's pull out the sword, boom, he wins again.
And Smith said, like, look, there are times in those 80s episodes where, say, He-Man would lose his sword or whatever. And he's like, and that's what he was looking at, was those moments. Like, it's called Masters of the Universe. Like, these are all heroes for a reason. Why are they heroes? Right? And again, for the 5 fans that are listening to us, these are 3 guys here sitting here talking to you that are very against any kind of like agenda, casting or writing or whatever. Just tell a good story. So when they came and attacked this thing, the first thing I was like was, wow, I hope this really isn't that, because I was looking forward to this for so long. But my big holdout was, it hasn't even dropped yet, and you fuckers are already attacking it. So I'm going to give it a second. And I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but it's not that. I'm the first one to call out woke bullshit and agenda casting and whatever you want to call it, but I don't think so. I mean, at least for me, I don't see it. It was a good progression of a story, and then as we get into the episodes, we can kind of defend that point a little bit further with the who was in it and what the storyline was. So Eric, could you like throw a few of these some of the cast at us? Because goddamn.
Yeah, so if Kevin Smith did one thing here that he's pretty good at, it's getting a bunch of famous people to participate in his projects, right? And I'm not sure if he pays them in peanuts or what, because I guess this thing had a fairly large budget for a cartoon, but
there's a lot of them.
But I mean, goddamn, right? I mean, it's voice acting, so I guess it doesn't pay. But yeah, so I'll run down the list at speed style, and you can just slow this down to half rate or something if you really care. But so Chris Wood plays He-Man. He's actually probably one of the least famous of the whole cast, having been in like Vampire Diaries and some other random bullshit. I think the only thing that's even tangentially related to what we do is he played a role in Supergirl for Mon-El. Skeletor, Mark Hamill, of course. Man at Arms / Duncan, if you don't know what his name is, like Paul. Played by Liam Cunningham, who did Davos in Game of Thrones. Like, that voice is super recognizable. Tila is played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is of course Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Evil Lynn's Lena Headey, who plays Cersei in Game of Thrones. Queen Marlena is Alicia Silverstone, my personal crush from way back in the 90s. Cringer is played by Stephen Root, who's actually the guy that plays Milton in Office Space, who's got my stapler. Orko is played by Griffin Newman. I think the only thing he's done related to us is that he was Arthur in that Tick reboot series thing that was on Amazon. Sorceress is Susan Eisenberg, who voiced Wonder Woman in a large chunk of the DCEU animated series and a couple movies like Justice League. Beastman, Kevin Michael Richardson, who voiced Goro, can't type apparently, who voiced Goro in Mortal Kombat, and he also did the voice for some of the Transformer movies, Skipjack, Berserker, some other stuff. Merman is Kevin Conroy, who is the voice of Batman in a lot of the DCEU animated productions. Kevin Smith's longtime consort Jason Mewes played Stinkor. What's that?
No,
oh. Yeah. Roboto was played by Justin Long, who's been in a whole host of shit, but the last thing recent I remember was Live Free or Die Hard. Scareglow is played by Tony Todd, who was the Candyman from all the Candyman movies. Hero is played by Kevin Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn Smith. What a fucking
Holy
name.
shit.
You wonder if this guy likes comic books or not. and then King Grayskull was played by, or the voice by, even though he has like very little part, but voiced by Dennis Haysbert, who most people probably know as the Allstate guy, but I remember as Pedro from Major League. You remember bringing Jobu to to get his backpack.
Jobu.
I like Jesus Christ too, but he can't help me with the curveball. Yeah, so that's I mean, talk about an all-star cast for some animated bullshit. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he knocked it out of the park. So, all right, yeah. So, like I said, we can scroll past this other part, except for some of the comments that you wrote here. That was kind of funny. Everyone was kind of like complaining about the wokeness of the show. My mouse ain't working again.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about it already, really, but I mean, the two primary complaints were the wokeness part, and then, small spoiler alert, the fact that He-Man and Skeletor are barely in the first 5 episodes, right? And that's probably more than a little spoiler, but so they're not there yet. So there was one comment that made me laugh. It said, He-Man, He-Man, Masters of the Bait and Switch.
Yeah, that's fun.
But Kevin Smith got fucking irritated, and he did a interview with Variety, and he was just like, he was cussing up a storm.
He told like I guess the non-woke fans to fuck off. Basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, he say like he sees all these people online, like, hey man, they're getting rid of the actual He-Man in the show, and then he said, like you really fucking think Mattel Television, who hired me and paid me money, wants to do a fucking Masters of the Universe show without He-Man? Grow the fuck up. Right? Yeah. Like, and he made a point to say too, even when he was getting the negative reviews, like, listen, you're basing this all on this stupid synopsis. I can't reveal anything from the synopsis, right? You basically got a line about the first episode. You're just going to have to wait.
True. But we talked about it when we talked earlier, was that all these complaints are coming from the synopsis. It was about Teela doing whatever. Now, they're also not completely wrong, because the first 5 episodes, it was still kind of that. It was still kind of Teela running around doing whatever. But there's more to it than that. So, all right, let's get into the episode. So let's just jump in.
Yep.
All right, so episode 1. Where the fuck am I?
Yeah, we did this one already.
Yeah, so we can go through it real fast.
So super fast, Teela gets promoted to the position Man-at-Arms, and we went into this already. I thought that was the characters. I thought that was Duncan's actual name was Man-at-Arms.
Yeah, that's what Eric and I made funny. Yeah.
And I thought the package says Man-at-Arms too. So like,
it does.
It does. I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Anyway, she gets promoted to Man-at-Arms. Teela gets promoted to that, and we find that Skeletor comes to attack Grayskull, same as he always does. Heroes drop everything, go fight him. They're having this big, massive fight. They manage to get into sort of the center-ish part of Grayskull.
Like basement level 3, or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Basement level 3.
They're in sort of like the heart of Grayskull, and He-Man goes to sort of run him through, and Skeletor manages to arrange himself in a way that sword of power pierces the magic orb, releasing all the power of Grayskull. And eventually,
well, no, even that it's even more asinine than that. When he runs him through, right? Skeletor's got it set up so that it runs him through, but doesn't kill him, but hits the little
locking mechanism.
Yeah,
locking mechanism that the sword is meant to hit, and then it opens, which is also something that we've never heard of before. Outside of like, okay, if you grew up with the Castle Grayskull, you know that the sword went into the front by the drawbridge and then it popped open, right? So there is that. But outside of that, you know nothing about this little thing on the bottom of Grayskull. But this one little hole that the sword fits into. Keep He-Man away from your wives, because
right.
Damn. Like he went right through Skeletor into this thing, and Skeletor was like, "Ah, gotcha," and like moves himself, Evelyn heals him, and the thing opens up to reveal the orb.
Yep.
And then Skeletor's like, "Watch this, motherfucker," and just smashes his fucking orb of power with his Havoc staff. And that's when all hell breaks loose.
Right. Sorceress slows time to the point that He-Man can funnel all this power through his sword that's going to end the universe as we know it. As he does that, it splits the sword in half and
turns him back to Adam.
Right, turns him back to Adam and seemingly kills him.
Yep.
And this is when Teela figures out that it's actually Adam. That He-Man is actually Adam. And so she goes, you cut back to the castle. The king is furious that he didn't know that his son, Prince Adam, was He-Man. He figures out that the queen knew and Duncan knew. And so he banishes Duncan forever. Teela quits, super mad at the queen, and says, screw all you've been lying to me, doing all this stuff. Forget it, I'm out of here.
Yeah, so talk about taking a turn in the story. Like if you came into this series thinking you were getting one thing, it was right up front, right? Like, nope, He-Man might be dead, Skeletor might be dead, Teela's taking over. Oh, and by the way, they're banished.
Everybody's out.
Everybody's out, exactly. Like,
hey, side note,
okay.
Nobody mentioned it at all ever. Who the fuck wants to be Marlena when Randor's finally calmed down from getting pissed at the first people and realizes you've been keeping this secret from me the whole time? Like, he was pretty pissed with everybody else. She's got to live with that fuck. I'm just saying. Things are not going to be happy in that marriage.
Right. You know what? And the other part I forgot to mention there. I mean, He-Man's identity was purposefully, I guess, a secret from Teela always and forever. And they just dropped it right here. Like, nope, that's over. We're done with that.
Yeah, they did it quick. Yeah. Because, all right, back in the 80s, the only ones that knew were Orko, Man-at-Arms, the Sorceress, and Cringer, because Cringer became Battle Cat.
Yeah, but
what's it?
It's a little bit ridiculous. Like, you look back at the 80s cartoon and like Adam is every bit as buff as He-Man.
Yes, if you look at the old 80s cartoon, yes. Like the remake that they did in the 2000s kind of at least did a little bit better. And even this one took from that.
Yeah.
Like when he's Adam,
Adam was like, he was, the voice was different. Like he had a more lilting sort of lighter toned voice. He acted more sort of skittish and shy and stuff, but he's just this giant buff dude, and you're like, Adam, do you work out? Like,
he literally looks like He-Man with
right.
So, well, back in the day, it was like, how the fuck do you not know this?
Yeah, how do you not know that?
It was like
this time they made him skinny.
Joke,
Yeah.
Where
at least this one, Adam is skinny, he's small, he's clearly younger. It's a little more like a Shazam thing.
Yeah, yes, very much more Shazam thing, and I like it better. Which they took that from the 2000s ish reboot, which I like. because it never made any sense at all, like at all. And yeah, so her like immediately her finding out like first episode, you're like, oh fuck, and that's also kind of like where I knew like once they disappeared, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of figuring where they're gonna go with this already, like with her going on some type of quest.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you couldn't have a so. I mean, this ultimately, at least the first 5 episodes, came out to be like a side quest for the supporting characters, right? But you couldn't have that if there was a He-Man there. Like you couldn't do that, right? Because they would always be in his shadow all the time. He would just come in and summon the power, and it would be over.
And something's gonna. You're right, exactly. Yeah, it's, like I said, the little juice machine that just went, I have the power and done. Yeah. Something else that was hinted at toward the end of the 80s series, and they keep kind of touching on it in here. So I'm curious to see how many times you guys caught it. In the original 80s cartoon, they talk about how Teela is the daughter of the sorceress, and she's hidden that from her because of her role as a sorceress. She can never be mother. She left her, with Man-at-Arms or whatever. So that's her mother, but they hide that and they wipe her mind, and she doesn't know that. But they do start to hint at that in this show repeatedly. If you caught it, and we'll see. We'll go as we go. Eric ran away. I'm not sure if he can actually hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, good. Yeah. If I hear you peeing, I'm gonna be laughing. All right. So anyway, yeah, she moves out, and that's pretty much the end of that episode, right? During the next episode that we have not touched on yet, we flash forward, and there's some like Ravagers that look like they look like the Ravagers from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
They're looking for something. They come across some treasure that they are looking for. And as they find it, they also come across Stinkor, who is voiced by Jason Mewes, and it's his lair that they're in. And there's a very, very brief fight. They knock him clear out of the lair, which very a la 80s He-Man. He goes flying through the fucking air and lands in the middle of the street. So it turns out, they take off their masks, and the Ravagers are Teela and her accomplice, which is a black girl named Andra, who apparently was either in the comics or briefly cited in the 80s cartoon. I'm pretty sure she was in the comics. But now she's a young black girl who's with her. And they may or not just be partners. We'll get on that. They may or may not be just working co-workers. We'll see. So
you're right. By the way, I looked it up. So she's from the comics. She first appeared in issue number 9 of Masters of the Universe, The Hate Stones.
Yes, I remember her in the comics. I didn't remember her in the show. Okay, good. All right. So after it was a glove or some type of gauntlet that was supposed to find from Stinkor. They bring it back to this other woman, and then they're immediately hired by some old craggy bitch. And she's like, do you want to make more money? Whatever, And she says, I need to find this goblet that belonged to an old dead friend of mine, and sends them to Snake Mountain. Teela's like, yeah, I can go. Let's go. So they head out to Snake Mountain. And I did not write where the episodes land, so I guess we don't give a fuck anymore.
What's that?
No, in my write-up, I didn't write where the episodes kind of land. I just kind of like threw shit together.
So no, this is still saying
she hires them. They're gonna go get this old goblet from Snake Mountain. It flashes back to Teela and He-Man on Snake Mountain. Basically, there's like a whole trapdoor on the front that she's trying to get out of, fighting Whiplash. He-Man whips his ass. and then turns to her and tells her, well, I'll go if you'll go. And that's going to come back around at least 3 times in this fucking series. So then break back to them. Andra and Tila, they're at the front of Snake Mountain where the trapdoor was. And she says, well, I know a way in. They pop open the trapdoor and start to dig into Snake Mountain. But they find a whole bunch more cybernetic enhancements all throughout the mountain. And I guess they find out that there's people wandering around there in robes that are like cyborgs. And it turns out that Triclops has taken over Snake Mountain as the ruler. And
he started like a cult.
He started a cult, yes.
Like a cult that worships technology instead of the magic.
He says Skeletor's ways with magic were wrong, so we're going to go with technology. This is the way to go. And he's converting random villagers to his cult with the goblet that they're looking for. But he's like pouring like nanotechnology into their fucking throats.
Yeah.
Out of this goblet. So fucking weird, but it kind of works in a He-Man way, you know, where like as soon as he pours it into them, they just kind of become like a T-1000-ish kind of thing, where they get some type of ability or some shit. I don't know. The dude he pours it into gets like a cybernetic eye. Sure. I don't know. Who wants to take over? Anybody, either one.
Sorry.
Yeah, either one of you fuckers.
I wasn't reading your thing.
I
But,
was trying to pick up where you left off.
I kind of jumped with the cybernetic guy.
So they end up beating down Triclops. They get out of Snake Mountain, take the cup back to the old lady, who turns out to be Evelyn.
Yes.
And so now they know that magic is dying in Eternia, and that the sorceress entrusted Evelyn with the last bit of magic, and that she's on this mission to, I guess, reignite the magic. And now Andra and Tila need to take Evelyn on the rest of this quest because they have to go get the power sword, and then they'll need some of the magic to actually reforge it.
Yeah, so that goblet that was transforming people was actually Skeletor's Havoc Staff, or the top of it anyway.
Yeah, the head.
Like disguised, yeah. And then that actually contained, I guess because he shattered the orb with it, that head contained like the last little bit of magic that was left in Eternia or whatever. So
we'll go with that.
Now you've got Tila, Evelyn, and Andra on this quest, and so you've got both sides of this equation, right? The good guys and the bad guys have to work together, and this sort of reluctant partnership to go do this quest.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I think
it ends with Tila saying, well, I know where we got to go because we need somebody who can forge the sword.
Yeah, I think doesn't this? I think the sorceress tells them they've got to go to the Hall of Heroes in Preternia and then the Land of the Dead.
They have to go to the Land of the Dead and then Preternia. Yeah, the other way around, or either way, they got to go to both.
Yeah. And Tila, at first she doesn't want to do it, but then Cringer gets her to agree to do it.
Yeah, he basically explains to her that like you're the one that named me Cringer because I'm afraid and I see fear in you, and that which was really actually like it was a cool moment for Cringer too, which was like surprising because Cringer's never really had that moment. But he says like, yeah, I see the fear in you. He's like, but you have to realize that Adam trusted you. Like you think he didn't, but he did because he trusted you with all of this when he's gone. Which, whether or not he's like 100% right, sure, but I mean, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, Adam always knew that there would be other heroes to fight on if anything happened to him.
Mhm.
And that's what Cringy was telling her. So he basically like lights a fire in her ass to like, hey, he believed in you, so you need to go bring this and fix this. Let's go. And then he stays.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a fucking thing.
So that's the end of 2.
Yep.
3 starts with obviously this time they have to go to Subternia, which is, I guess, their version of hell.
Mhm.
Tila mentions that she knows someone that can reforge the swords. They go looking for, they don't really tell you who, but at the beginning you see this sort of older guy, hood down. Something happens at this fountain that's giving up like the last drips of what looks like water, but it turns out to be magic. Some stuff happens, a fight breaks out, old man, whips a bunch of people's asses. And when they Triclops shows up, bigger fight breaks out. It's now Tila and Andra show up with Evelyn. Now Beastman becomes part of this. Beastman was off in the distance and ends up jumping Triclops and his guys. And then the old man pulls his hood back and it's Duncan. And he's the one that they need to reforge the Sword of Power. They go into this sort of long talk about he's not going to go do it, and it's not because he doesn't want to help, but now he's got a family, and what you find is that he's taken in Orko, who's like dying because all the magic and attorney is gone. He's a magical being, and then Roboto, who is an android that Man-at-Arms has built to be a sort of copy of him. Like, it has all his memories and all this stuff. And so he's raising him as if he's a son. He's taking care of Orko, who's sick and on his last legs. And so he's not going to go because this family needs him, Duncan. Roboto says, well, wait a minute, if I have your memories, I can go, then I know how to reforge the sword and I can go.
Yeah.
And Orko's like, well, I can go because I can do some magic and I'm near the end and I want to go do something heroic, and so let me go. It's kind of sad, right? Like, Orko's all sort of shriveled up and it's a little bit dying. It's a little bit sad to watch. And so Duncan, Tila sends Duncan to go guard Castle Grayskull. And it starts with this flashback of this one time that He-Man and Tila are on the deck of the ship, and Merman and the Skeletor has him, and Duncan comes sort of swooping in on this sort of submarine thing, looking a little bit like Iron Man.
A little bit.
Flies, skims, whatever up, helps save the day, right? Shoots the handcuffs off of He-Man and helps save the day, and then takes off. Ends up doing that again, comes and saves them. Again from Merman and his guys, and then turns around and takes back off. They descend to Subternia, and the whole episode is really about fear and how that manifests. And there's this, I think the cool sort of dialogue in this is Orko having this conversation with Evelyn about being this mess up his whole life. Like, he's always been this jokester, and his name was actually supposed to be Oracle, but he couldn't, as a baby, couldn't say it, and because his parents wanted him to be this magic user, and it turns out he's not any good at it, and his name is a mispronunciation of that. And they had this actually kind of bonding, he and Evelyn this bonding thing, and it's more sort of character development of anything that's ever happened in any of the 80s stuff. And then Tila she faces this demon that feeds on her fears. Her fear becomes being inadequate and not able to protect the people that she cares about, and being found to be weak. So she ends up in a fight with what looks to be He-Man, but it obviously isn't him. And then as they she realizes Tila starts to overcome her fears. The demon is going to blast them. Evelyn's out of magic in what's left of her orb thing. And so Orko, kind of out of nowhere, comes in and puts up this circle of protection over them, and is, this guy's just like throwing all these magic bolts and stuff, and holding it back from them so they can get out. And
there was something about that I wanted to touch on. That I don't know. I stepped out real quick to talk to Heather. The demon that we keep talking about is Scareglow, who was, one of the, he was very late in the toy line. He showed up, but they've touched on it in the comics where he's kind of he's got something. He's very closely bonded with Skeletor. He's almost like Skeletor made a version of himself, and it was Scareglow. It was some weird shit like that. Here, they almost kind of touch on that, but then they kind of gloss over it and let it go away. Because Tila, when she first sees him, she's like, Skeletor, and he's like, no, I remember that name, or I recognize that name.
Yeah.
And then he talks about being this evil thing or whatever, and you're like, so they touch on it, but not really, and you're like, oh, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Because
he's the Dollar Tree version of Skeletor. Yeah, he's
yeah, he is. And there's it was funny too, because I don't know if that's Kevin Smith's way of being haha, I got you, because that's kind of what you thought of him when you first saw him back in the 80s. For the comics, he became a little bit more where they kind of fleshed out what he was tied into Skeletor. And then Kevin Smith turned around and turned it on his head and was like, no, he's just, he's a glow in the dark Skeletor. It's okay. Yeah. So I thought that was funny. All right. So anyway, okay. So Orko and he start fighting.
Yeah, and Orko's doing a good job holding him back, and they get they're able to escape Subternia, and he's like, I'll hold him off. And the last thing that you see happen is that Skeleglow and the other one disappear. Did I butcher the guy's name? What was it?
Oh yeah, Scareglow.
Scareglow.
Yeah.
Skeleglow is appropriate. I thought he was actually making a joke about it being a Skeletor copy.
Yeah, I should have said that was on purpose.
I was running with it. I thought it was on purpose. All right.
And they just sort of
not only did I fucking write it right there, but okay.
And so Orko sacrifices himself so that the others can get away, and it's the first sort of actual heroic thing he's ever done. In his dying moments. And so there's this little scrap of his hat or suit or something that slows down, and they grab. And so Tila's she's lost another friend, and it's actually a nice, cool thing, good storytelling.
It is really cool storytelling, and something I missed in between that and the next episode is that episode ends on when they get that little scrap of his scarf. They're in Preternia, they've already moved on.
Yeah,
and Adam walks out of the woods. It was I missed that whole couple of last minutes of the end of it when I was kind of trying to hurry up through the remake or to the write-up, and I was like, oh shit, because I jumped to the next episode where he was already he was there. I was
like, hey everybody.
Yeah, he just walks up hey, how's it going, Tila? What's up? And you're like, what the fuck? So they're in Preternia already.
Yeah.
So now
the other thing.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was gonna say the other thing that happens here right before Orko is that Evelyn uses the last bit of magic she has to open that portal to Preternia. And he says something to her like, maybe no one's born evil or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then he goes through that whole thing where he decides to stay back. So
Yeah. Yeah, she opens it. He decides to stay back and he dies. So we go into the next episode now that they're in Paternia with Adam. And it opens up on Adam making a grave for Orko. So obviously he's got all his memories and everything. He's putting a little piece of fabric from her from his scarf on there. And then he just speaks aloud. Says, could you give him a piece of home? And the grass around it starts to change color and whatever. And like the entire area becomes a little bit of Trala, Orko's homeworld. And then, they're all like, what the fuck? And Adam's like, yeah, no, it's, he says, thank you, Moss Man. So it's Moss Man, who you actually saw in the first episode of this briefly, but he's in Paternia. He's this essentially a god there now. Like he's part of the jungle, and he can kind of do whatever the fuck he wants out there, and that's what he does. Which is funny. It was a nice callback to some of the comic series that I read, where he is like this really like omnipotent ancient being that has just been there forever and does his thing to help them out. So it's kind of cool. So Tila tells him, hey, I need to get home. And Adam's like, well, here, you can have the other half of the sword.
I have the other sword half. Here you go.
Right here. Here you go. I was like, wow, well, that was convenient. And he's like, and he says, I can even take, you can go talk to Hero to go reforge it. And I laughed because, Hero, again, call back to back in the day with the toys. Another one that came out late, for me, very late in the day in the toys, but running dark hair, long cape, whatever. You'll see him in the show. And then, but he says, look, there's no way back to Eternia. The door only opens one way, and sorry, it's why we're all here. It's Eternia, it's paradise. You kind of fucked. But then he goes, but wait, there's more. But I think I might know a way. And he points off, and it's funny for anyone who grew up with any of the toys, like right at the last of the line, they did this toy line that was like a sky car thing. Basically, you put your figures in it, and it would ride from Castle Grayskull past this panther-looking thing that almost looked like the Thundercats, and then over to like Snake Mountain, whatever. So it's basically just like a trolley kind of thing, right? And your toys would ride in it. That's what this fucking is. Like you can see the track moving, and I just recently saw it in a comic. I was trying to catch up on some of the old comics just to kind of talk about this kind of shit, and it was in there too. It was like I read that series of comics that was just like here's a comic of the month that's going to be an ad for this toy, and bang, and you got it. And you're like, what the fuck? It was just all about that toy, basically, like why that toy fit into the universe. And when I saw this, like you can see the Panther Castle with the little, it looks like a Disney tram, right? With the little sky cars. It was just going by in the background, and I was like, I can't believe Kevin Smith threw that fucking in here. But he did, and I'm just even happier for it. It's like, wow, he's throwing literally everything into this thing, and that's going to come into play even worse later on in this episode. But yeah, he did it. He threw in the fucking, I forget what the name of the thing is, but it's Eternia. It was what they called it. It was Eternia. It was all of Eternia in a little sky car dumb shit. It was stupid, but it was great. Whatever. So he threw that in here too, and that's their way back to Eternia. Is to take this fucking 90s toy back or whatever. So they're gonna head that way, and they're gonna go talk to King Grayskull. So that's how they're gonna figure out how to get back. There's a way back, and it's through there. They cut back to Hero. That's when you see Hero, who's one of the other figures from the line that was barely touched on, and he's there, and he's looking at the two halves of the sword, and he's like, "Can't believe this fucking happened. It's not supposed to happen." Because, well, okay, all right. In defense of the people who are against the woke shit, I'm a man and I can't believe this happened. I don't know how we're gonna fix this. Here comes a black woman. Oh, sorry. Yeah, somebody take that one for me. Andre comes in. No, nothing.
Oh yeah. So
You don't want to
says,
touch that one, huh?
No.
Okay.
I got it. So yeah, he can't figure out what to do. She's like, well, why can't we just figure out how to? The android knows how to do it. We should be able to power him up well enough that he provides, all the energy we need or whatever. So she rewires him a little bit.
Well, the android says, "I can do this part," and the hero's like, "What are you gonna use for a forge?" And she's like, "Isn't this whole fucking place made out of whatever the hell it's made out of?
Yeah,
We'll make the whole goddamn thing a forge."
Yeah, and then so she hooks him up to all kinds of cables and stuff, and then he remembers the process of learning how to forge the thing, and it he starts working, doing his thing. Is this no? It's 5. I guess 5 has the hunt, right? So yeah, we're still figuring out how to forge the sword.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. I kind of blended 4 and 5 together. Yeah. This is 4.
Nope, you're right. This is the same episode. Nope.
It all happens. Episode, right?
Yeah, that happens in like the first, I don't know, like 5 minutes of this one, I feel like. Yeah. And then actually, I'm looking at it right now. Yep. It's right around minute marker 6 that they go to the hunt.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So this hunt happens where all of the champions of Preternia, which is like Valhalla for sort of people who die, champions of Eternia that die a heroic or awesome death, you end up here. And so they're chasing this, I don't know.
Well, this is where Adam tells Tila, "We're gonna find Grayskull here."
Yeah.
But we have to win the hunt, whatever, right?
Right. And so there's Hero, there's
the sorceress is
what looks like a sorceress. Yeah, she speaks some weird ancient language. And then just as they have these float hydro board things, and they, just as they're getting near it, like Grayskull comes out of the ground on some giant thing.
Well, there's two others that are key to this. 2 other heroes that are in there that are key to this that I laughed because when we talked about Kevin Smith throwing everything into this, the sorceress precursor, she hangs out with a guy who looks like Conan. Yeah. And if you go to, like we talked about, go to Netflix and watch The Toys That Made Us, and go to the Master of the Universe episode. There were 3 prototypes for He-Man. And one was like this dude with like a tank head, and one was like some other weird aviation shit, and one was like this Conan looking motherfucker. This is him. Yeah. Right? Kevin Smith put him in this cartoon. And then the last hero that's there looks just like the 80s He-Man, but with a brown what do you call it? The vest of power, right? It's like a brown looking thing. And way back when I was growing up, there was this rumor of what was called Wonder Bread He-Man. Google that. That's exactly what this fucking guy looks like. There was a rumor of like if you buy Wonder Bread and you save proofs of purchase, you can go get this exclusive He-Man figure. It looks like him. It's He-Man with dark brown hair and this dark brown power vest. And that's what Kevin Smith put in there. When he popped out on that screen, I was sitting in my recliner, and I sat up straight, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" He put Wonder Bread He-Man in this goddamn thing. I was like, "There's
I'm literally googling Wonder Bread He-Man, and I'm looking at him. Yeah, it does look like it.
right." I as soon as he popped up, I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like just as much as I was a little irritated with Kevin Smith kind of firing back on the fans, looking at everything that he threw into this show, I was like, I cannot wait for the next 5 fucking episodes because this thing is fucking stupid with nostalgia.
Yeah, that is 100% him. If you look, if you find the Wonder Bread He-Man with the shirt on when he's first on that dinosaur-looking thing, he's wearing that shirt.
Yeah,
with that white symbol on it.
told you.
I would have never made it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's why I'm the king of the geeks, baby. I know really dumb shit that nobody needs to know about. Yeah. So yeah, so Wonder Bread He-Man makes an appearance, and all right, yeah. So then King Grayskull comes flying out of nowhere on a goddamn Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it is the other complaint that all the I don't know, whatever the hardcore, quote unquote hardcore fans had. Straight up looks like someone gave what the fuck is his name? Dude from the big ass black guy. Guy from AGT.
Terry Crews?
Yeah. It literally looks like they gave Terry Crews like the fucking King Grayskull hair and just fucking rolled him out.
Yeah.
It really did. It was a giant black He-Man. And it really, I mean, it was vaguely like they changed his face up a little bit, and which is something that we talked about in the last time we talked about this, was when the rumor was he was going to be a black guy. I said, if you're going to make him like, if you're just going to switch him around, just switch him around. That's stupid. The argument also was that, King Grayskull is supposed to be like, Adam's grandfather, which I immediately thought was going to be dumb then. That's kind of like really stupid. But looking at it from what they did in this cartoon was, all right, Grayskull pops up and he's this giant black guy. And he really does look like you changed the face a little bit from the old school 80s King Grayskull, who's really just He-Man with long hair. That's all he was, right? So,
same outfit and everything. He's got the cape. He's got the white puffy.
They made like minor adjustments to it and said, "This is King Grayskull. This is the first one." And basically, like the idea was they all look the same. Well, what Smith did here was he took all these different versions of He-Man from back in the day and made them different heroes throughout time for Grayskull. So they do still kind of look the same, but not quite. And this one, King Grayskull, while he was a black guy, he was not related to any of them. So there's none of that bullshit argument. He was just the first hero that took up the mantle or took up the sword or took up the power of Grayskull, right? And so he does look similar to them, but not quite. He's the first hero. And then he and Adam have a conversation about, Adam says that they named the castle after you. And he says, well, I was the first to hold the power. So yeah, they did name the castle after me. And then he said, but if you look at the castle, it's a dubious honor at best. The castle is just some giant moldy green thing. Yeah, so it's funny, but none of it is done like one of the things we complain about is none of this is done with where I would say just force feeding something into you or saying here's an agenda. They took this character and said, well, there's literally like maybe 5-10 pages in the last 40 fucking years that's dedicated to this guy. can't we switch them up a little bit and flesh it out? But then he went and he fleshed out all these heroes at the same time to go, hey, look, here's all these little nods to the canon to make it work even better. You know what I mean? So it just like it all works out perfectly fine. So, and again, and I always say I'm the biggest one to fucking complain about that kind of shit. And when I watched it, I was like, oh, well, that makes perfect fucking sense. Fuck it, it's good. All right, so
he Grayskull explains to Adam that they're in
Valhalla
paradise, right? Like this is the reward for the heroic life lived defending Eternia, right? And now that you've done what you were supposed to do, you get to live out the rest of your days in perfect harmony in this idyllic paradise. You can leave it. There's a way to leave it if you want.
Yeah, he says, I do have a way out right there, but why the fuck would I?
Why would you want that? Right. And if you take it, you can't come back. Like when you die, you will just, go into the ground and fertilize the soil like everybody else. Like you will.
You're immortal. Yep.
You will be immortal and go back and just, you don't get this sort of champion's glorious death. And live here in forever. So the other's the way out, but why would you want it? The Roboto forges a sword. The power and the charge and all the stuff grows to this point where it's sort of overloading his circuits, and you see his POV of the whole thing start to shake and sort of glitch out. They get everybody back to the minimum safe distance. Which they point out, like, get to minimum safe distance. And finally, they're like, should we go check on him? It's like, is he all right? And the tower where they are.
I don't know how they ever know that, but good.
Yeah. And so they rush in to try to, after the explosion, and the sword's back and it's good. He's like missing 3 limbs and on his last
circuit
moments. And he tells Tila, he says, Duncan, father said, that he was making me, I feel fear. And she's like, no, you don't need to be afraid. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's awesome. I'm an android. I'm a robot. The fact that I can feel anything is great. And it means that Duncan made me real, and I'm part of the family, and isn't that awesome?
He made a miracle.
And I'm the miracle, and then dies. And so now there's 2 that have been lost on this quest, right? They lost Orko and they lost him. And so she's got the sword and she's getting ready to leave. And still unclear if Adam's going. And then he decides, if you're going, I think this is where they have the next sort of, if you're going, I'm going.
Yeah, because there was another one in there with her and her girlfriend. Sorry. We never touched on that really in this whole. There have been some vague innuendo between her and Andra that, they might be a couple.
Yep.
And she tells Andra, if you're going, I'm going. Where you go, I go. And
yeah.
So then Adam shows up at the last second and says, where you go, I go. And he decides to go with them. And
I don't know if this is it, or because at some point Adam and Tila have it out, and it might be in 5. It might be in the next round, but they have this whole thing about like, well, why didn't you trust me with the secret? Why didn't you tell me?
It was
it all out with them. So they go through that whole thing.
They have their whole in and out. They have what I like to call their come to Jesus moment.
Yep. So I think this one ends with them stepping back into Eternia.
Yeah, they're right outside of Grayskull. They're in the middle of the fight. They race to Grayskull because they're not going to beleaguer this anymore. They run into Grayskull, get back down to the same spot that they were when this whole fucking thing started. the sorceress is sitting there in her nightgown. All the heroes show up, and then Adam, who's kind of been there, like walks out and appears like he's not been there. So the sorceress is all surprised by him, like, oh, Adam's back. So Tila turns around to hand him the sword. Says, well, this is what we've been waiting for. You can call back the magic. Which is funny too, because if you were going to go by the argument from the people against the woke side of it, everyone thought it was going to be like Tila going in there and doing all this shit, whatever. So Adam came back, and it's He-Man coming back to do this shit. So Adam shows up and says, okay, I'm going to help. And she hands him the sword and says, well, you remember the tune? And he says, yeah. And he grabs the sword, unwraps it. He says, by the power of Grayskull, the sorceress moves it. There's like this good 5 fucking minute montage of after he says by the power of Grayskull, the sorceress moving over to where she needs to be, which could you have already been fucking there? You saw him, get in position. Everyone's kind of moving around doing shit, and shit's starting to open up or whatever. Goddamn, get ready. This kid came back from fucking heaven. So she gets into this whole beam of light, like she's gonna get the power, and he says, once he gets by the power of Grayskull, he brings the sword down and says, I have the power. You hear this shriek, and you're like, what the fuck? And Skeletor's behind him.
Blood drips out of his mouth.
Yeah, blood drips out of his mouth. Yeah, it comes out of his mouth, which is very explicit for a fucking He-Man cartoon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, mind you, you've seen people getting kind of more fucked up than they normally do in this series than they did back in the day. But that was way I knew it was. I knew we still had a whole half to go, right? So, but when he did the whole "I had the power," I thought we were gonna have a whole He-Man on the Masters versus Skeletor or whatever, right? I didn't know what the fuck was gonna happen there. But when Skeletor fucking shanks his ass right in the middle of the "I had the power," I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Oh shit!" That's never happened in a He-Man shit for me before. Adam's bleeding out of his mouth, drops to the fucking ground, and Skeletor fully forms. So the Havoc staff that Evelyn had, he's been hiding in, and he reforms the entire staff, picks up the fucking sword, and says, what the fuck does he call her, Lenny?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good job, Lenny. And it's that was the second time where, especially there though, where it really struck home with me that this was Mark Hamill essentially just jokerizing Skeletor.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But at the same time, I'm still kind of, I really liked it. I like this version of Skeletor because he's not taking any fucking punches. He's like, fuck this, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And he's like, good job, Lenny. He picks up the fucking power sword. He's basically does this whole little speech. And then he does the enchantment. Oh, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. And you see, the last thing you see is Tila holding Adam on the floor, bleeding out, and Skeletor standing above fucking Castle Grayskull with a goddamn crown of his Havoc staff crown kind of thing on his head, and he's the most powerful.
And the vested power, yeah.
Yeah, the vested power on him, and he's the most powerful being in the universe. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And then it ends.
It's a great ending, and you're like, wow, I never would have saw that coming.
No, it was definitely nothing you ever saw remotely come to faction when we were growing up. Skeletor, while I would always say Skeletor was always like, you never knew what the fuck kind of shit he was gonna get up to. You always kind of figured he was some kind of bumbling twat. You know what I mean? Like he's even though he was always making fun of all his minions, he was like, "You bumbling fool!" Yeah, like you always knew. Nah, He-Man's got the upper hand on him somehow, and they like, which again, to progress the story to our age now, you have to get there. But growing up, it was always like like Eric said, at the end of the day, the hero's gonna win. Skeletor's gonna make fun of his men and run away and come back to fight another day, and that's gonna be the end of it. And here, Skeletor's like, "Ha! Fuck you! Shanked you in your liver. I'm going home with the power. See you later." I'm like, "God damn!"
And then there's this scene where he's like, "Come on, Lenny," and because his evil Lynn and Tila had this whole conversation about like, "I'm not going back to work for these guys. Like, why can't we?" And Tila's like, "Come on, we talked about this." And she's like, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah.
She's just kind of like, "Yeah, you guys are boring."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, she's like, I was starting to like you guys.
I'm starting to like you guys, but come on, who the fuck do you think I'm gonna throw my lot in with?
Yeah. It had a very it had a Joker Harley Quinn thing, like, yeah, I can't quit him,
It did. So, all right. So hopefully by this point, because we never said spoiler in the beginning, but I think if you saw a review for the whole thing, you should be not watching this. All right, overall reaction to all 5 episodes, and then either prediction or expectations for the next one. Go, anybody.
I don't have any good predictions. No, I'll go only to say that I have no good predictions about what the fuck's about to happen here. But it was a very much different story than I imagined. I thought it was going to be one sort of He-Man episode played out over 10, like, and so to see him die in the beginning was like kind of like, oh, okay, well, don't know where this is headed. So it was a lot different than I'm expecting. I do have to say though, I have a tough time keeping really engaged with this show. Not that the story's not good or anything, but there's something about the only slightly redone art and stuff and the weird slow frame rate that actually kind of bugs me and makes me not want to watch it.
Which is funny because it's very reminiscent of what the show was.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it definitely is. Yeah. I don't know, man. I just I think maybe I'm different than you guys in that I've always had a tough time with the animated stuff.
Possibly.
For a while, like I liked it as a kid. I loved it as a kid, actually. And now I just want to see live action of everything.
I'm interested to see how we get, because I know at the end He-Man's going to win, right? Like, go back to Kevin Smith's quote about like Mattel didn't hire him to kill He-Man in the 4th episode, right? First episode, and never see him again, and they didn't hire him to kill Adam in the 5th episode and never turn back into He-Man again. So I know we're getting there. I'm curious to see how. And since we've killed He-Man in episode 1, but we found that he could come back, and he did, we got to find another way for him to come back. And what I'm a little bit hesitant of is what sort of BS way you're going to do that.
Yeah.
When it looks to everybody as if he's been run through, right? So where is he now? Where we got to go? Like how what are we going to do here that it gets the power back and He-Man eventually takes it and wins in the end? Like, I know that's where we're going to end up. So I'm just curious as to how we're going to get there.
Yeah, me too. I would say, unlike Eric, I was more looking forward to a current storytelling version of He-Man, which is what I got. Where kind of it would like progress from one episode to another. I like Eric. I did not expect him to fucking whack him in the first episode. Going into it, I've enjoyed how they told it, knowing the history of the unresolved storylines. Knowing that, I've enjoyed it. But how they're going to, because something else I said earlier that we haven't really touched on either is they've touched on a couple of times. People keep trying to tell Tila there's something else we need to tell you.
Yeah.
Because she's already pissed she's been lied to. And they keep trying to tell her there's another secret. And it's the one I was telling about earlier with the sorcerers. And she keeps like something keeps shutting it down. Either her or something else happens. Like we don't have time for this. And they shut it down. So that's going to become a thing in the second half too. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm wondering if something like similar to a comic that I read where the sorceress uses all her power to do some shit and Tila takes over as a sorceress could happen here. I'm kind of hoping that, I'm very hoping that the retarded fanboys are not right and Tila picks up a sword. Because it's not the answer. It's supposed to be He-Man because He-Man and the Master of the Universe. Yeah.
Tila picks up the sword and she's actually She-Ra.
Yeah. Oh, God damn. Because they have not justified the She-Ra remake at all. Fuck. God damn it, Paul.
It's either that or Mephisto.
Oh my God, it's Mephisto. You know what? Fuck it. That's where I'm going to end it. It's Mephisto. That's perfect. Oh my God. Does anybody got anything else after Mephisto? I think I'm good. Eric's just chuckling. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Good.
We're out on Mephisto.
We're on Mephisto. All right. Oh my God. Yeah. So let us know what you think of Master of the Universe, the first half. Let us know what you think is going to happen in the second half, if it's Mephisto or not. Like, subscribe, ring a bell. Hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that happy shit. God, that was what. Just send me something to the power of Grayskull. And we will talk to you next week for something. I'm not sure what. Hopefully we can do a Suicide Squad review because I'm stuck at home watching everything. So for once, these guys got to catch up on me.
Right.
All right. We will talk to you guys next week. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Skeleglow, you dollar store Skeletor.
God damn.
Good night, Orko. Forever.
Aw.